Hey everybody, Adam here. I'm here with the one and only Pastor Ted. How you doing today, Ted?
Doing well.
Good. You are outside enjoying the beautiful day. It seems a little cooler today than it was earlier in the week.
Yeah, I know. But while it's good, it's really nice. So trying to enjoy this early summer.
Yeah, I'm a little jealous. I need to get out there. Hey, great message on Sunday. Loved the big idea that kindness keeps us free. When we talk about the word free as Christians, how would you define freedom for us?
Yeah. So as believers, we have this unique opportunity of actually living out that definition of what freedom is by living out the way that Jesus has demonstrated what freedom is, which is by taking all of his freedom as the Son of God and using it to serve others like us, and then ultimately to set us free. So we see a lot of concepts there of service, humility, and really sacrifice. You know, if we think about what the cross means, and that can be our way of living free for others. I think I heard someone say at one time that we should always remember as Christians we're freed from something for something. So it's not a freedom that has no definition. We're freed to serve and glorify God, to love others, to love Him. And so when we see those purposes in our freedom, I think it gives us kind of the right channels that we can use that freedom in a way that ultimately keeps us free and then helps others see God living in us.
Yeah, I liked how you highlighted that. Really the whole book of Galatians, Paul talks about how freedom can be used as a way to serve me or as a way to serve others. And I really liked how you kind of showed what Paul refers to as kind of fruits of the flesh versus fruits of the spirit. And then you kind of distinguish between the two. That was really memorable. Can you kind of talk about that for a moment?
Yeah, so in Galatians 5, there's these two lists. There's the good list, which is we've been talking about the fruit of the spirit, and then the bad list, the works of the flesh. And just taking, all those lists are just single terms, taking those terms and then inserting them earlier in the chapter where he talks about, hey, let's not use our freedom to be blank, the bad one, but let's rather use use our freedom to be manifesting the fruits of the spirit. I think being able to do that for a lot of folks helps us to realize what's the contrast between two different ways to live. One where it's freedom, basically defined as very personal, very me-centered, versus a freedom that loves and serves others and ultimately resembles Jesus, which is Paul's ultimate point in even putting up these lists, is to help the church follow Jesus through all the changing times that it may go through, to allow his example to be the beacon that guides them through every storm, every change, every challenge.
Yeah, I think sometimes we just live life in neutral, and we don't necessarily realize when we see some of those things on the bad list, that means that we're probably not displaying the good list. And so strife and fits of anger and dissension and division, and we don't have to look very far on social media or perhaps even in our own hearts during some of this craziness to see some of those things. But the good news is knowing that the fruit of the spirit can replace those things, so we don't have to just live in this neutrality. We can actually live in the goodness of the fruits of the spirit. And I thought that was really nice how you highlighted that. And I even think that we probably should come up with some posters or get our Instagram team creating some posts, because that really just struck a chord with me during that message. I appreciated how you highlighted that. You also talked about how kindness fosters cooperation. That was a quote that stood out to me. Can you talk a little bit about how you've seen that in your own life?
Yeah, one of the things I've been really working on since I've kind of broken my foot is just being a little more attentive to how I'm asking for things around the house. You know, I can't fetch a lot when both my hands are in crutches, so a lot of things have to be brought to me, and just listening to how I sound, I think has reminded me that, you know, we really do have some flexibility in the way that we just express ourselves to others. You know, I can allow my needs to dominate what I'm saying. And for me, it's been, yeah, I'm hungry, or my foot hurts, or I need water. And so I can just only focus on that. Or I can consider the people who I'm actually talking to. What are they into? What are they feeling? Were they busy or not? And when I balance those two realities, it tends to be more kind when I'm considering others, and even putting myself in their shoes, like how would they want to be addressed? So that's been something that has been right up in my face this whole time. And then just when I'm more aware of where they are, it tends to work a lot better for everybody here.
Yeah, as I was watching that on Sunday, I couldn't help but think of all the different places that I've worked, and the different teams and supervisors and bosses and managers, and the ones that have been kind, even if they've been demanding, if they've done it in a kind way, you know, you want to work for them and you want to work with them and you want to get stuff done. But ones that are unkind or mean or overly demanding and critical, you know, there's no desire. You do it because you have to, but there's really no cooperation that's occurring. And I think everyone can relate to that. But in the family, as per your illustration, I think that's a great illustration of to be able to bring that kindness to the way that we speak to our spouse and to our kids, and those that, especially if we're still stuck inside the house together, it's so important and applicable right now. And you did, there was a quote that people just seem to really resonate with on the comment section. You said, "Live at the pace of kindness." Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, I think maybe for a lot of folks, we are kind of looking at our pace in this new normal. When everybody had to go home and everything shut down, everything kind of came to a screeching halt. And honestly, for most people, that might have been the first time they really, really slowed down. Even our vacations sometimes seem to be so rushed that we need a vacation from our vacation, which doesn't seem to make sense, but it's so true. And so people actually got to have some breathing room. And I think that allowed them to evaluate the pace of their life. And so I think that kind of connected with folks because they're looking at the busyness that we're often really kind of pushed into from our culture and saying, I don't know if it's worth it anymore. I don't know if it's bringing out, maybe this is the better way of saying, I don't know if it's bringing out the best version of me to be going at this rate of speed. And because the first thing that goes is kindness, you know, sitting there and thinking about, hey, how should I ask this and how might you receive it? You know, all of that presupposes time. And so when we're busy, we do tend to be operating out of our default mode, which now we're back to the bad list, which is the works of the flesh list, which is just the easy way to do things because it comes naturally to us. And so kindness has a pace, and that may be different for people. And I think it's just a way to remind ourselves that as we move forward, we want to move forward at a rate that shows the best part of who we are. And so everybody has to figure out where that exactly lands.
Yeah, that was really good. Definitely resonated with me. And then your next step resonated with me as well. You asked us to consider what's the one thing about the new normal that's most likely to frustrate us, and then to ask ourselves, what does kindness look like in that situation? Why do you think it's important for us to actually think through the situation before we actually get into it?
Right. Yeah, it's the big difference between acting and reacting. You know, being able to insert a little bit of thinking through things before it happens, as opposed to, I think, what I end up doing a lot of, and maybe a lot of other people's face, which is after the fact, I'll sit back and go, oh, yeah, I could have probably done better. So rather than living with regret, we can choose to be a little more intentional by just knowing ourselves and saying, I'm probably going to face something like this. My default would be to act this way, but I'm going to choose something differently. And then lo and behold, when it happens, you already have some of those responses preloaded that might make for a better overall situation as opposed to just off the cuff reacting.
Yeah, that's good. The acting rather than reacting, kind of thinking through it and being prepared for it in advance. And for me, that's been before I get online and read comments, just kind of preparing myself emotionally. And it might be the kind thing to do is not to respond at all, or perhaps to just keep scrolling, or to turn off social media altogether. But if I don't think about that in advance and actually prepare, then I'll just end up reading and commenting and getting emotionally attached to something that's really not going to be any good at all. And so a great message. It's really applicable to where we're at as a society today. And before we leave, is there anything that you would just kind of encourage folks to do to be able to move forward? Perhaps they didn't hear the message, or to be able to continue to learn more?
Yeah, for sure. So tonight I'm getting ready to do our Wednesday night study. So we'll be looking at this particular issue again, and hopefully be able to study that whole section of Galatians. So I think that would be helpful for folks. And then maybe just as they're moving out back into culture, maybe thinking through what is the pace where they're kindest, and pausing at the end of each day and just giving 5 minutes of consideration to how the events of the day planned out, and where was there room for improvement. And not to beat ourselves up, but just to say, okay, so when this is likely to happen, I need to change this. And I think just doing that will allow us to adjust ourselves to a point where we're really bringing our best selves out into the new normal that we're all having to face.
Yeah, that's really good. I think that's something we've been talking a lot about as a church. Is a lot of our next steps even have reflection in them, and we don't just reflect for the sake of reflecting. We reflect for the sake of being able to react and act differently and more like Christ, displaying those fruits of the Spirit. And so thanks so much for that challenge and for the encouraging message. And we'll put a link down in the comments for folks to sign up for the Bible study tonight, 7 o'clock, always a good time. And then if any of you didn't have a chance to watch the message, go to c3willing.com. You can download the app or watch it right from the website, and would really encourage folks to do that and to share it with others, because if there's anything that the world needs right now, it's a little bit more kindness, and kindness does set us free. And so thanks for joining me, Ted. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, everybody, have a great day. Great to see you. Join Ted tonight at 7 o'clock.